That time of the week again, Toasters and Moshers. I'm Charles, and this is Riffs and Spliffs.
What's up, bitches?
Coming down the pipeline on today's episode, we have a strain by the name of Silver Mountain Haze, and to follow up with that in our music appreciation section, we will be delving into the heavy band known as the Acacia strain. Chiefing our way into the cannabis education section, we first see this Silver Mountain Haze bred and cultivated by Cresco Labs in, from what I could find, 2021. Because this is a fairly new strain to the world of cannabis, there is not too much information or path of history developed, so I wasn't able to find anything too exciting to give you folks today. Talk about a bummer. We see this Silver Mountain Haze leaning more towards the sativa side, although this is a cross between 3 or 4 different strains. Those strains that make up Silver Mountain Haze are going to be that of sativa descent as well. When looking at our most commonly found terpenes for this guy, for the haze, we see that limonene is going to be our number one, so getting that citrusy, sweet smelling, tasting going on. We got ocimene, and then we have coming in a strong third terpinolene, so it's nice to see that little bit of terpinolene in there, because again, you guys know, that's my top dog, that's my jam. Again, this is going to be one of the companies / strains where I'm not going to have a ton of the content information to share with you guys. I hate that I can't. Really bums me out. But I do have a little bit for you, and we'll get into that right about now.
It's just easy to your steps. Just flip it, stick it, and see you later. Bye.
THC average range that I had found through doing a little bit of research says it will be anywhere from 21 to 24%. In my personal stash, I have THCA coming in at 19.28%, not too shabby. Then we have THC itself coming in at 0.30, and then CBD, it gives me 0%, and then we see a wee little bit of CBDA with 0.07%. Most common and notable flavors and aroma for this one is going to be citrus and fruity, hence that limonene and the bit of terpinolene. But then we're going to have that ocimene that brings in the floral and a little bit more of the herbal side. Now, I will say for myself personally, when I smoke Silver Mountain Haze, I don't, maybe with the scent, I can see a bit of that citrus and fruity, but when it comes to the taste, as far as the inhale and the exhale, it's almost kind of a little bit more harsh, and I get that floral and herby one, or herby scent, I should say. And this is one of those strains where if I take too big of a rip, it's definitely going to make me cough for a while. It's going to make me cheech and chong.
Kind of grabs you by the boo-boo, don't it?
Although this one might get you in the lungs, some of the most common effects you can expect after getting ripped on this shamola, you're going to be creative and focused. You're going to feel energized and uplifted. But for myself personally, I feel alert. So I don't feel like that necessarily, if anything, kind of goes towards the focus. But just because you're alert doesn't mean you're necessarily energized or uplifted. For myself as well, I get some pressure behind my eyes. You know, kind of that, glaucoma probably isn't the way to describe it. I don't think glaucoma is an adjective. I just kind of get that buildup behind my eyes, and it just makes my eyes kind of squint, you know, like you really need those eye drops. Other than that, definitely get creative vibes for sure. I will smoke this one when I go to the skate park. I like to smoke this when I skate, maybe before I boot up a video game, playing PC Simulator, Builder on my custom-built PC and shit, or I just mindlessly roll up people and a bunch of shit in Katamari. It's my way. moving forward, pressing onward. Most common and potential benefits medicinally you can expect is help with your depression and social anxiety. I kind of put social in parentheses because I feel like anxiety, if it's taken care of, it's taken care of. I don't know, that might be dumb of me to say. I feel like it just kind of coincides and sticks together. Other than that, lack of motivation. This one coming in with that uplifting to get you out of the funk so you can write that sick lick, you can paint that nice painting, you can be the Picasso you always wanted to be. As we keep on toking along through our cannabis education section, we come to the last little bundle of our lineage breakdown. Coming straight off of Cresco Labs' website, they have Silver Mountain Haze as a cross between Old Sog Super Silver Haze and Appalachia. Now, I tried looking into this Old Sog Super Silver Haze and comparing it with what I've had, a strain called just Super Silver Haze. I had that back when I lived in Denver for a short period of time, and I'm stumped. I couldn't find much of a difference, or if there was one, or maybe I'm just missing something. If any of you toasters or moshers out there have any more insight or a little bit of information about this old sog, quote unquote, please reach out. Give me the goodies. Let's help each other out. Help me help you by helping me. Taking this breakdown a little further as we look into the OS Super Silver Haze lineage, that in itself is going to be Super Silver Haze, and that within itself is a cross of a Haze and Haze crossed with Skunk number 1. So then we're going to take that Super Silver Haze and we're going to cross it by an unknown strain that's just Haze by Haze, and then that double Haze cross is crossing with Northern Lights number 5. I apologize, guys, if that seems a little confusing to hear. I feel like I explained it the way it should be. Take a listen. Let me know. I'll try to, if I need to clarify a little bit more, just reach out. Not so much of a complicated strain. Appalachia is going to have a lineage, I should say, of Green Crack by Trace Dog. Green Crack in itself, guys, I will say is a very fantastic strain. I've never had Trace Dog in itself, but Green Crack I've had as a cart. And I'll tell you, one rip, and I was genuinely probably high for about a good 2.5 hours. I took a rip before coming back from a trip from the UP back down to Chicago. And yeah, it did what I needed it to do.
And that's pretty cool.
That is going to do it for the cannabis education part of our podcast today, Toasters and Moshers. Now, as we keep chiefing on that roach, we're going to make our way into the music appreciation section. And in this music appreciation section today, we're going to be looking at the Acacia strain. The Acacia strain was first founded and came on the scene in 2001. I was only 10 years old. Imagine that. They are out of the city of Chicopee, Massachusetts. They are a currently operating band with 10 albums under their belt and a couple EPs even.
Human music. I like it.
The only original remaining member is the vocalist, Vincent Bennett. Looking into their genre breakdown, we have, in their early years, they have more of a metal/deathcore influence. And as you keep going on later in the years, you see that slight deathcore influence with a more sludge and doom aspect influence. And I gotta say, I love all their stuff, but I really love the later stuff, guys. The tones on the guitars at that point, I just really love that drony, kind of drawn out sludgy. So tell me what you think, guys. What's your take? When we look at the original lineup of this band starting way back in 2001, we see Vincent Bennett on vocals, Daniel Laskiewicz That's, again, apologize. I will apologize every time. He was guitar and programming. Then we have Daniel DePond. He was guitar and backing vocals. And then we see Christopher Daniel as well on guitar, so 3 guitars. That's pretty interesting. And then Carrie Whitefield on bass. And then Ben Arbert on drums. I'm pretty sure, remembering when I was doing the research, the Acacia Strain was another one of those bands where, other than the vocalist, they had a lot of lineup changes, but not really. I don't even have any honorable mentions in their section for this podcast. So nothing really crazy going on, but obviously the member changes show as the time goes on and their albums get a lot more mature. The production's a lot better, but we'll talk about that when we come to the discography. Current lineup, we're going to have Vincent Bennett still on vocals. Then we have Devin Schedaker, lead guitar and backing vocals. Then we have Mike Mulholland, touring rhythm guitarist. Griffin Landa, bass. And on drums, we have Kevin Boutet. He's drums and second longest existing member, apparently. So there you go, guys. After the Acacia Strain formed as its unusual 3-guitar lineup, they started playing local shows in their area and were soon after picked up by Devil's Head Records. With this signing, the band ended up releasing what would be their debut album in 2002, and that album was entitled ... and Life is Very Long. The Acacia Strain would end up releasing their first 2 albums with this record label. The following 3 albums after that were then released via Prosthetic Records. Then they would go on to sign and release the remainder of their catalog up to date with Rise Records, which I found that interesting at the time when I saw that they had signed with Rise, because Rise has such interesting artists on it, and I just didn't expect a band like Acacia to be put on that label. I'm pretty sure Dance Gavin Dance is one of the bands on that label, just to throw out like a really odd counter example. But yeah, so they've been with Rise for a good chunk of their last few albums. As fate would have it, here we have arrived to our discography breakdown. That first release being ... and Life is Very Long in 2002, followed up only 2 short years later by 3750 in 2004. Third on their discography, we see The Dead Walk, 2006. 2 short years later again, we have Continent, 5th installment in 2008. And then 6th installment, we see 2010's Wormwood. Now, I'll tell you, Wormwood was the first time I was ever introduced to the Acacia Strain, probably about 2011. I had a buddy who showed me on YouTube some rando who made an acoustic rendition of Bottom Feeder. And if you guys know Bottom Feeder, the lyrics are pretty intense. I'll throw in a little clip after this, but it's intense, and to just hear an acoustic rendition, it made me so interested in wanting to hear the actual song that, yeah, I told my buddy pull that shit up, and that was the end. It was all his. Now that our balls and vaginas have been blasted off, we see the 7th installment of their discography being in 2012 with Death is the Only Mortal. After that, we see Coma Witch in 2014, followed up with a 3-year take in 2017 with their Grave Bloom album. Only 2 short years after that, then we see It Comes in Waves. And closing out their discography with their most recent release, there's going to be 2020's Slow Decay. It was really difficult when trying to rate these albums and to put them in an order, but I found myself seeing the Acacia Strain as one of those bands like Ion Dissonance, where their newer stuff just for me hits harder, kind of just pulls at my anger strings a little bit more. And the production, I like it a lot more. The guitar tones, everything about the new stuff is so good. So yeah, expect to hear a lot of their more later releases in my tops here. So Hold tight, buccarinis.
Buckle up, buckaroo!
For my first pick, I have their most recent album, Slow Decay. And I just gotta say, very big step up from even starting from Coma Witch and beyond. Not that, again, Wormwood is easily top 3, but even from Coma Witch onward, I just feel like that's when they really found their niche. That's when they found their production sound. That's when they found their guitar sound. That's when the members seemed to stop fluctuating that much. They really only went in and out with bass players for the most part. It's mature, and you know that they've really come together as a band with these newer albums. But yeah, Slow Decay, everything about it, the guitar, the bass even, nice and punchy, not muddied out, not too in your face. The drums, I love the punk stylistics with the drums and even the riffs in this album. The whole thing throughout is just A+. Number 1. Number 2 I have as Grave Bloom. This is the one that has tracks like Bitter Pill and Big Sleep. That's it. Yeah, Big Sleep was the first song I heard off this album, and just the lyrics, how dark and existential between that and the slow, sludgy kind of guitar riff, kind of beatdown-ish at parts, gives you that two-step vibe. But yeah, the production's a little different on Grave Bloom and Coma Witch compared to It Comes in Waves and then Slow Decay. Not as bright, which in Slow Decay and It Comes in Waves, it's not bright to the point where it's like that overproduced bright or too ear-piercing, too crisp and clean. It's a little bit more, kind of almost bassy in a sense, but not bad bassy. And that's
all I have to say about that.
I digress. Number 2. Number 3, if you couldn't get that hint from something I just said shortly ago, Wormwood is closing out my number 3. And not just because of my small, tiny, biased opinion and because it was my introduction, but the tracks on this are so different, and I feel like Wormwood and Death is the Only Mortal kind of had almost the same style as far as the writing, and almost kind of, if you had to clump 2 albums together that sounded the same almost, I would say those. But Wormwood it's so fast. It has a lot of punky, a lot of circle pit parts. Even at the end, Tactical Nuke, that song that just slowly, that breakdown is slower and slower and slower. It just... It's such an angry album, and that's why I keep it still in my top 3, because the emotions it can draw out for me personally. I don't know how, if metal music and extreme, obscure music touches you guys the way it does for me. But yeah, Wormwood just gets me going. The guitar tones I really enjoy. When I first got a 7-string, I made it a point to learn at least half that album on guitar. I don't think I remember any of it. It's been a while, but yeah, Wormwood has good production, great drums that come out of it, very stylistic. You get a lot of that deathcore breakdown, but I feel like they were still a little bit more technical at this time before they got too sludgy, and that's why I keep it in my top 3, because they keep it nice and fresh on this album. Coming in at 4, I have It Comes in Waves. No surprise, again, kind of newer stuff in their catalog, and that's because I feel like It Comes in Waves, not in the sense of how good I think the writing is, but the production-wise. And again, kind of with the Wormwood Death is the Only Mortal comparison, those two I feel just really go together and could almost be pretty much together. But I can't rank it number 2 again, just because I love the way it's written. I love that it's got that influence from Slow Decay, and you could see the transition from It Comes in Waves to that. It doesn't evoke me as much as Wormwood. I just feel like the writing isn't as in your face and punchy even as Slow Decay. That's just me. We can hash it out if you want. Put up your I'm right here. So I'm gonna change up this next one now that I'm thinking about it after really looking at my breakdown here. Number 6 I have, or not number 6, I'm on number 5. Fuck. Number 5 I had as 3750, one of their earlier, with their second album, and it's really good, but I had as 6th Coma Witch, one of their newer ones, and you know what? I'm even going to go ahead and I'm going to swap that Coma Witch to 5, and I'm going to put 3750 tied at 6th with the Deadwalk, just because I felt like, again, those two are kind of compared, and specifically those two, I feel, are very similar. The writing is very like, they're a lot more in your face and grindy, and I believe it's the Deadwalk. It really just gave me kind of almost an Amir feel, and I, sorry if I offend anybody by saying that. If you don't like Amir, I know Amir and Acacia Strain through the years had their headbutts, but yeah, I can't do Coma Witch like that. Ultimately, Coma Witch is way better than 3750 as far as the tones, the writing, the maturity, Vincent's vocals, and I get they were young, and I love that stuff. I love kind of that more chaotic, grindy, Cornish influence, you know. Anywho, that's kind of my take on that, swapping that around. Gonna pick up after that Coma Witch being at 6, and then after that I have coming in, I guess because I paired 3750 and the Deadwalk. Next up would be And Life Is Very Long, their first release. I just really liked it. It was kind of a good precursor to 3750 and the Deadwalk, but without kind of that Amir influence-ish, or that Korn influence, if you'd say, because they were out before. And Life Is Very Long is just so chaotic. Lots of panicky type chords, very fast, in your face. The production, not necessarily the best, obviously. First album, especially being 2001. You know, even though we had pop artists and shit, artists who were doing stuff like with the Acacia Strain, you know, DIY artists, blah, blah, blah. We don't have shit because we're poor. Most of us, anyway.
Anybody have some change?
9th in my installment is going to be Continent, released in 2008. I like this one. Obviously, I like all their shit, but Continent seemed the most cookie cutter. At that point, it seemed like they were going to just trying to sound like a lot of the bands that were doing that kind of genre at the time before they floated into Wormwood and got their more sludgy, heavier tuning going on and kind of took that step. But Continent has good songs. JFC, you know, Jesus Fucking Christ, Skynet, you know, Balboa Towers, just to name a few. This album, it has its moments where it shines. I know a lot of people, I feel, would put it a lot higher in their perspective.
I'm just doing me.
That brings us to our last pick, and that's going to be their release right after Wormwood, Death Is the Only Mortal. You know, guys, as I mentioned, I go back and I listen to the discographies, you know, just so I'm going into this with a fresh take, a new take even from, you know, when I maybe only listened to something once or twice in the past. And Death Is the Only Mortal is kind of one of those albums when it came out. Doomblade, Our Perpetual Lady of Sorrow, I listened to them, I liked them, but when the album finally dropped, even then, I wasn't a really big fan. There just wasn't much captivating about it. It just seemed like they were trying to still suck off of the vibe of Wormwood and not really grow off of it. The production wasn't really my favorite. I would have rather taken the production from their earlier albums. I don't know, the guitar tone just wasn't the best. I would rather, again, have that grungy, chaotic, grindy type stuff. You know, See You Next Tuesday even, if you will. I don't know. It just didn't have a lot for me personally that was offered. Nothing crazy or inventive as far as the guitar parts or the drums. Just very standard deathcore. Surprisingly, I don't see why the sludge didn't work to their benefit. I don't know. That's a wrap. Not really much to offer y'all tonight in the way of interesting facts. The only thing I really have here is that Vincent Bennett is straight edge himself and has his own clothing line called Diamond Cut Co. I'm not too sure if they are running. You could, you know, if I could find the link, I'll share it in the description, but I used to have a tank that I'd gotten from him when I saw them. I actually met the Acacia Strain a couple times, and one time when I saw them and met them, Vincent had his merch with the merch for the Acacia Strain, so I decided to support him and pick up a tank. But now I don't have that, and we're not going to talk about that. Again, since the Acacia Strain has kind of a bigger discography, I'm going to give y'all a couple riffs for this week. The first riff I'm going to mention and show you guys is going to be the intro riff out of the song Calloused Mouth. This is off of their 2007 release. 2017 release, Grave Bloom. Now that our eardrums are starting to get a little rattled and used to the chugs, the next riff I want to mention is going to be off of Grave Bloom as well, and I mentioned it a little earlier. We're going to go with the intro sludgy riff to Big Sleep. Did that one make you shit your pants or what? I know I did, Toasters and Moshers. Last riff I'm going to use to fry your brain balls tonight is going to come out of the song The Impaler, and that is going to be off of 2010's Wormwood. Get ready. Brain balls officially fried. Alright, Toasters and Moshers, now that we're done having our balls fried off, or whatever you have, we're gonna be packing our chillums and get ready to snooze away with our Chill 'em Out section. Today's Chill 'em Out is brought to you by a song that I picked called Pinot Noir, and this is going to be by the vaporwave / synth pop artist Eyeliner. Take a listen. A chill track for sure, but a little bit different than what I've had on here as far as the Chill 'em Out section, but that's okay. This song is going to be from the album By Now, and that was released in 2015. Last note about this artist I will leave you with is that they are better known by their pseudonym Disaster Radio, and this is Luke Rowell, and he made up the alias Eyeliner in 2012 to start exploring his love for vaporwave. Now that we are all roasted and toasted, I appreciate all you toasters and moshers out there who have took the time to listen to this podcast. If you'd like to check the show notes in the description down below, as always, I will have all my social media linked where you can keep up with all the happenings on the Riffs and Spliffs podcast. As always, stay toasty, my friends.